Hey everyone, welcome back to theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Again, that website address is theclinicaltrialsguru.com. In my humble opinion, the best place on the internet for clinical trial content and information, aside from Darshan's blog, Conform Law, right?
Informlaw.com, yes.
That's right, conformlaw.com. And in case you're new to the show, you are seeing next to me on this Skype interview Darshan Kulkarni. He is a man who really needs no introduction, but let's introduce him anyways. He's an attorney. He's also a pharmacist, okay, at the same time. I mean, he's gone to school for like 1,000 years, right? Like, attorney, pharmacist. Did you do that all at the same time, or was it like separate? I've never asked you this.
I went first to pharmacy school, got my doctorate, then went to law school, got my JD,
Wow.
simultaneously started my master's in quality assurance regulatory affairs.
Wow.
Just that.
Amazing, man. And so because of his unique background, I mean, how many pharmacists and attorneys are there in the U.S.? Are there quite a few, or are you just one of a handful?
I'm one of a handful, but most of them, as far as I know, practice in intellectual property
Okay.
in general. They don't tend to come into clinical trials and stuff like that.
All right. All right. So yeah, I mean, because of his unique background, he's got a very unique perspective on clinical research, and he specializes in clinical research and pharma law and different things like that. Sunshine Act. I mean, he can go on for days about the things that he focuses on, not specializes. But after everything I just said, in addition, he's an author, a teacher, a speaker, blogger. Do not take this as legal advice. All right, this is not a substitute for you paying an attorney. And if you want a good one, call Darshan. I've referred him clients. So please take the time to enjoy this video, but not take it as legal advice. Please don't do that. That would be bad. Um, all right, Darshan, thank you again for coming on the show. It's always popular when you come on. I'd like to start with viewer questions, and then we'll just kind of get into like a informal discussion about the state of the industry and things like that, because this question's kind of broad. Okay, so we can go in many different directions with it, and we probably will. So honestly, you and I don't even know where this is headed, but we do know the first question, and it's regarding salaries for clinical research professionals. And specifically, I have a data set in front of me, and when you guys watch this on the blog, you'll see the graph. I'll have it on there, but I'll just explain it to you now. It's for study coordinators. The salary of a study coordinator is always averaged around 50 to 60,000 for years. Like, let's go back to like 2004. It's always been pretty steady, like climbing, and then something happened October 2012 where the graph just like plummets down. And I wish you guys can see it, but it goes like this for years. October 2012, boom, goes straight down, and now it's just like flatlined. And that's a clinical research coordinator salary in the U.S. The average research coordinator salary, I think it's like around 36,000 right now, and it dropped from like 60. So my theory, the viewer's question is why? What happened in October, around October 2012, that made this happen? My theory is there's because of the recession that we've just gotten out of, companies are being very cautious with their money. In fact, if you watch CNBC like I do, which may or may not be a good thing, but regardless, I watch it. They talk about how profits are at all-time highs, but spending, corporate spending, is just nowhere. Like, people are not spending. Companies are making money, but holding on to it. And I think that's the case in clinical research. I mean, we're part of business. So, as a research site owner, I can kind of be honest and tell you, yes, that is kind of true. I mean, we kind of got burned during the recent recession we had, where we would be continuing to spend money, and then the downturn hit, and we were kind of left holding the bag. So this time around, we're being extra cautious, the other extreme. And I think that's what's going on in every clinical research organization for the most part. They're trying to do more with less, and they're just trying to squeeze profits any way they can. And corporate America is doing this in any industry. I mean, profits are at all-time highs, but they're not spending. We're not doing much to stimulate the economy or to improve the employment rate. What are your thoughts on this, Darshan? Am I just talking a bunch of crap?
No, I think you may be right. I don't think it's. I think a lot of people tend to attribute that to greed, and I don't think it's as simple as that. It's not sort of like, oh, the corporate overlords got together and said we will keep all of our money. I think there are a couple of different things that go into it. One is predictability. We've had a couple of false starts over the last couple of years where the economy gets better and then just slows down all over again. So the last thing a lot of corporate companies want to do is invest into infrastructure that they can't pay for if the economy slows back down. The other thing that's happening more specifically in the clinical trials field is this new sunshine law and this whole idea of fair market value that's taken over. A lot of pharmaceutical companies are saying we are willing to pay only X amount of money for a study. So it's gone from being a let's have a negotiation over what this costs or what we're willing to pay to here's what we're willing to pay in a bracket. If you can't take it, you need to walk away from the study. So if you as a clinical research site wants to maximize your profits, you will say if I'm only going to get paid X for this study, I have to be able to save money in a couple of different ways, and one of those different ways might be in salaries. So in those situations, what you would do is you would hire people who cost less. Some of those people may be new graduates. Some of those people may be older graduates who've lost their jobs and are willing to take a risk at this point. And it's a risky proposition because a coordinator's job in many situations is coordinating a whole bunch of different things, and that often requires experience. So sites that are experimenting may find that as soon as a research coordinator gets the experience that they need, they're willing to walk away. On the other hand, the ones that aren't, they may actually find new and innovative ways to be happy at the job they're already at. They may say, you know what, I now have job security because I was maybe thinking that I'm not getting paid as much, or my boss thought I was getting paid too much, and I was always worried that I'm going to get fired. Now I think that I'm not going to get fired because my boss and I are at a happy equilibrium. So I don't know what way that's going to go. But I'm seeing more and more. I go to these conferences all the time, and I've been seeing individuals who are newer to the industry coming on, and this may have something to do with exactly what you're talking about. This new, I'm a new clinical coordinator. What should I know? What shouldn't I know? It may be easier to train these people because it may be more specific to your site.
Right.
And that's what people are experimenting with right now.
Yeah, you can find, I know from personal experience, you can find very smart people fresh out of college for like close to minimum wage. I mean, especially if they're looking to, if they're looking at research as a stepping stone to medical school, you're getting like someone who will be a doctor for relatively low salary. And
minimum wage.
A minimum wage in California, I think it's 8 something.
Yeah,
we would pay like 12 to 15 for a brand new study coordinator an hour, and of course we'd go up if they stick around with us. But while we're training them, I mean, we're gonna pay them, lower than what they would expect.
Minimum wage. You're paying them a lot more than minimum wage.
Yeah, we're not paying minimum wage. I mean, would be like the medical technicians. Not even they get minimum wage at my company, but there are others who actually try to squeeze profits, and they are doing these kind of things. So I don't know. And does it apply to CROs? Like, can we go that route? I know that PRA International, the big CRO, just got acquired by KKR, the private equity firm, publicly traded private equity firm. So that's not like it's dumb money being thrown at these CROs. These are like smart professional investors that are betting $1 billion+ on a CRO that's not even top 3 in the world as far as their size. I think it's Quintiles, Covance, and PPD, and then PRA. So there's obviously, like, they're bullish on the industry, and you would expect salaries to reflect that, but they're not, at least according to this graph, um, for a research coordinator salary. So I think that's the bigger picture is people are just kind of waiting to see what happens.
Um, I think CROs are a slightly different beast.
Hmm.
CROs, in many ways, came out of the excess of pharma. So we all know that pharma had a whole bunch of money, especially in the 80s and 90s, and even the early 2000s. And what you had was a situation where companies said, I can do what pharma does and do it cheaper. So I've worked for a CRO previously, and they were great, except they paid very little money. And that's what CROs are known for. They tend to have, at least in my experiences, and it depends on which CRO you're working for as well. But they tend to have higher turnover. They tend to keep their costs low. So I would be surprised if they have a dramatic drop in salary the way you're seeing at the site level, because they already keep their salaries pretty low.
What I am seeing from CROs,
Uh-huh.
and correct me if I'm wrong, and then we'll talk about pharma companies later because I want to get your input on that. Is that they are hiring because they're still growing and they're hiring and they don't mind hiring people with very little to no monitoring experience. Like they might be hiring former coordinators.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that the workload for each individual CRA, which is a monitor, is
Mm-hmm.
increasing, and that's not going to change. So I think they're trying to do more with less also. Quintel's being one of them. They just went public. PRA International, these
Yep.
are like, there's big things going on now. And I think across the board, they're trying to get people to do more for the same or less.
Absolutely. And again, it depends on what kind of CRO you're talking about. I work with some small CROs that see their employees as investments. I've worked with with larger CROs that see their employees as cogs in a wheel, because they are such a huge company that they know that they're going to have a certain amount of turnover, and that's the model they use. Um, so the CROs that are growing, sometimes they say we're willing to we're willing to have a certain amount of employee turnover, and if we're willing to have that certain amount of employee turnover, we will give and maximize the amount of revenue we can make off of each employee. So if we'll give them more studies, they'll do those more studies and move on that way. However, if you listen in on some of the conversations about the discussions between sponsors and CROs, what you start noticing is sponsors are always complaining that we have these weekly or bi-weekly phone calls. Every couple of weeks, you as a CRO tends to change the person we're talking to because they keep leaving. And that's not a good thing for a sponsor-CRO relationship, because we keep expecting to hear the same person, except every couple of weeks we see it's a new person coming on, not as familiar with the protocol. What am I going to do? I'm now training the person I'm talking to,
Mm-hmm.
and that becomes problematic. Um, I think the CRO model still has to restabilize. It's going through a period of flux, as we all know, with these acquisitions. What does that actually mean for relationships? I don't know. As you and I, Dan, have discussed before, there is this new partnership model with CROs that's going on. Have we talked about it? I think we have, right?
The exclusive partnerships from sponsors and CROs.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm seeing a lot of that.
exactly. And you and I had talked about this, I
But
think,
I'm
close
still
to
seeing turnover in those setups. Like I've seen enough to where it's not just random anymore. I mean, probably like a dozen, and I'm still seeing turnover. So it's not like that's made life easier for anyone.
No, it's not that it's made life for anyone. It made life easier for anyone. It's actually a way for pharma to de-risk.
Hmm.
So again, you have to remember where we are in the time period. 2010 onwards and going on till about 2018, you are in the middle of the patent cliffs. Have you heard that term before?
Yes, yeah, it's when
Okay,
all the expiring patents and yeah.
exactly. And pharma doesn't have the pipeline to fill the multi-billion-dollar products that they used to have. And since they don't have that pipeline, they're now saying, how do I de-risk my investments? Well, one of the ways to de-risk it is to say, CRO, you do the study for us. In exchange for you doing the study for us, we will either split profits, or we'll have some kind of profit sharing associated with this. Maybe some kind of exclusive relationship associated with this.
So they're having the CRO help them actually discover
Correct.
drugs. So like
Correct.
Quintiles is actually employing scientists to discover new compounds.
No, when we use the word discover, I was using it in a slightly different tone. They're saying that we will. So pharma's gone from being a discoverer, as you put, like a what used to happen is they were considered to be FIPCs, fully integrated pharmaceutical companies. They're moving to what are called VIPCs, virtually integrated pharmaceutical companies. And what that means is, and a really good example of that is a company called Endo. What they used to do is they used to originally say, we do everything in-house, from discovery all the way through sales. And now what you're noticing is pharmaceutical companies are saying, we're really, really good at sales. That's what our core competency is. And we are actually not that great at discovering products. So what we will do is we will have someone else, academic medical centers, small biotechs, go discover the products. We will then choose which products we want to buy in. So the early discovery phase was already outsourced, in that they would just purchase or in-license products from smaller companies. What we're seeing now is phase 2 of that outsourcing process, which is pharmaceutical companies used to still take on the process of clinical trials, and now they're saying that we won't pay for that either. We will have CROs take on the risk with us. So they are offloading the risk associated with that, and they're saying we will focus on marketing and potentially reformulations of the product and the evergreening process later on.
So they're actually partners, not just in the lip service sense of the word, but real partners now.
Exactly.
I'm seeing a lot of that. So let's talk. I mean, we talked about pharma. Let's talk about, what's the, I guess, state of the industry there. I mean, what are they thinking with the patent cliffs that we were talking about? What are they trying to do? Are you seeing any more any new innovations, or are there more drugs coming out of the pipeline? What is your forecast? So what's your crystal ball say about clinical research?
A couple of things that are happening. One is, as we know, there's been, over the last couple of years, and sites are seeing this more than anyone else, a large section of pharma is saying we want to do our studies internationally. So they are transferring research, as we all know, to all these countries. We can talk in depth about India because there's so much stuff happening there, but let's start generally. Generally speaking, they're saying we will do studies in Europe, we will do studies in Eastern Europe, we will do studies in China, India, Brazil, Latin America in general. But what's happened because of that is exposure of risk. Clinical trial sites are seeing this whole discussion around fair market value, and they're saying, "Oh, the False Claims Act, we're being squeezed under the False Claims Act." This whole fair market value concept doesn't just apply under the False Claims Act, under the Sunshine Law, just internally. It applies globally as well, and you're seeing pharmaceutical companies pay the price of that. I know of at least 3 to 4 major pharma and biotech companies and medical device companies pay huge fines because of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. That's the same law that Walmart had an issue with in Mexico a few months ago. Basically, it says that if you bribe foreign officials, we will hold you responsible in the United States. So it's an extraterritorial law. Well, how does that apply to pharmaceutical companies? It applies in a couple of different ways. One is there was a situation where a study was being done in China, and these doctors were taken out to a fancy place for the site initiation visit, and that was attributed to be a clinical trial cost. Unfortunately, when the DOJ and the SEC looked at it, they said, we don't think that's a clinical trial cost. You were taking doctors to a fancy place to eat. That's an advertising cost. You were hiding it. And that was really, these doctors don't work for just private investigators. They work for the Chinese government because
Right.
that's how healthcare is set up in China. And if that's true, you just bribed a foreign official.
Mm-hmm.
Under the FCPA, these companies were prosecuted, and you
Isn't
had.
that a felony?
I don't know actually. I haven't had to look at it. I think that there are certain provisions that allow for felonies and stuff like that. But this was, I think, against the company itself,
Oh, okay.
opposed to
Okay.
individuals.
Mm-hmm.
So they actually had a settlement associated with it. Then you had in Europe, you had a company that, this is going back a few years, a company wanted to get their product approved. The person said, you know what, I can't, and they tried to say, you know what do I need to do to make sure that this product gets approved? The foreign official said, you know what, I can't take anything. I'm a foreign official. My wife works for this trust that is trying to rebuild a castle, and make sure she's taken care of. So a chunk of money went towards this castle rebuilding project. And again, it was a charity and all that good stuff, but the fact was that that was seen as a bribe, official. So key takeaway is there are, and again, you had things like India where there was a parliamentary report that came out that said that the Indian FDA is beholden to pharmaceutical companies. These are all major issues. It's almost virtually guaranteed that in the next couple of years, you will see something coming out about the FCPA against companies in India. And India has this huge turnover because of their own patent issues, and we can discuss that completely separately.
Right, yeah, there'll be time for that. Now, speaking of stocks, we love stocks. The stock that I own is Starbucks. It's the only stock I own, kind of a pharma company. I heard they do clinical trials, or they did one.
Really?
Yeah, they wanted to test the effects of caffeine on something, and they did it. I mean, it was like not a real study, but still. Yeah. Would you buy a pharma stock?
I have to be careful about buying pharma stocks. I can't buy pharma stocks in companies that I already have that I'm giving legal advice to, because if I did, I would have confidential information that other people shouldn't have, and that would be deemed to be insider trading. There have been several situations over the last couple of years. I mean, I'm talking the last 2 years. I think there have been at least 3 to 6 convictions under insider trading, and insider trading is the same law that Martha Stewart was convicted for, and she went to jail over. So, so we want to be careful with that. There have been several pharmaceutical and biotech companies that have had executives who made this mistake. Things have ranged from. Let me give you a few examples. One was they had 3 individuals who I think were friends in 3 different pharmaceutical companies, and they would pass stock tips and insider information to each other, and they would buy stocks. That was deemed insider trading.
Are they in jail, or they just got fined?
I think that one of them. I think they went to jail. I can't remember. I'd have to look.
And this is the executive level
This is executive levels.
CEO.
No, it wasn't CEO.
Okay.
There are a couple of CEO ones as well. Another one that you may have heard of was the FDA official. Did you hear about this one?
No.
Okay. Basically, this guy was a chemist at the FDA, so he knew when a drug would get approved. He would buy stock and short it. DOJ went after him, and he was convicted. He and his son, I believe, was convicted.
Wow. So an FDA scientist.
Yes.
So he would know when a drug would not get approved and short it.
Exactly.
Wow.
Another one, this is recent news, turns out that people at HHS, I think it was like 40 people, have been are being assessed for insider trading, which is interesting as well. So there's a lot more stuff happening in insider trading. I think companies are careful.
Yeah. Now, what if I would be interested in doing a group with our viewers on discussing stocks. You
Uh-huh.
know, just you pick a stock, I pick a stock, and we'll just kind of talk about it privately. Maybe a Google Hangout.
Uh-huh.
And if we ever want to make it public, we could. I'll put a sign up sheet underneath this blog post if anyone's interested, and we will see if we would do that. Would you be interested?
I may be interested. We have to be careful that we aren't discussing insider information. We have to make sure that that information, to the extent possible, is not being. It obviously not reflects any kind of insider information.
Right.
But and if that's true, I think that's an interesting thought process.
Well, I would discuss Starbucks. You know, you would discuss something you like, not necessarily a client.
Yeah,
Hopefully not a client, but someone that you are bullish on.
yeah,
And then the other people who join, you know, they can share the same.
that sounds like a really exciting plan. I'd be interested in talking
You
about
can
it.
do a Google Hangout, and we're preparing to launch a webinar for those of you who don't know. Intro to clinical research and how to get more studies. I have sign up sheets there. So this would be just another like sign up sheet. This will be free. We'll just kind of do a Google Hangout
Hmm.
once a month or so and discuss it. And I think if we record them, it would be pretty nice.
That should be fun.
Yeah, not bad. So, anyways, the take home message is coordinators are making less money than ever, but working harder than ever. And CROs are growing, but they're not hiring. They're just making more money, right?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, looks like.
And insiders at pharma companies are trading inside information to each other, and FDA scientists are shorting stocks of drug companies that they know will not get approved.
And then Foreign Corrupt Practices Act issues.
Yes, that too. Just sprinkle that on top of everything.
There you go.
A nice interview, man.
Thank you.
And we'll do it again. Anything else you want to add?
I think we covered a lot of ground on this one, so we can talk about something else next time.
Anyone else we can sue?
Lord, staying busy.
Good. All right, let me give my. And by the way, your blog is conformlaw.com, right?
Yeah, that's my website. Sure.
And Twitter handle at FDA Lawyers. So follow Darshan there. And on LinkedIn, of course, I want to give my clinical trial guru producers a shout out. Sarah Elizabeth Siegler, Resolve Research Solutions, Accurate Clinical Trials, Earnhardt Clinical Trials, PTNR, Patrick Stone, Darshan Kulkarni, Biopharm Systems, Zymwire, Mozio, South Coast Clinical Trials, Breakthrough Clinical Trials, and St. Paul Medical Research Center in Miami, Florida. Thank you guys for watching, and send your questions, and let's sign up for that stock trading group. Let's see what happens. Let's see what we can do without insider trading.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you, Darshan.
Thank you.
Dan from theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Take care.